Why do watermelons have fancy weddings?
Why?
Because they cantaloupe.
I love that joke.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to Hungry Squared, where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon, the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter with theredparty.com. This week, we are talking about caramelization? Caramelization.
Caramelization.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Hungry Squared.
Sharon, how's your week been? What'd you eat this week?
I ate a seafood pasta that was delightful.
What was the seafood in it? Was it just shrimp?
Shrimp and mussels.
Ooh, I love mussels.
Yeah, they were so good.
I think that is wonderful. Because
Yeah.
it can be light and heavy at the same time. What was the sauce?
Barely any sauce. Just a little bit of butter.
Oh,
Just a little bit.
was it good?
Oh, it was delicious. With some crusty garlic bread and crunchy salad. It was so good. It was a
Perfect.
perfect summer meal.
Yeah, because you don't want to eat something super heavy. So that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. I didn't make it. It was good.
And that's even better that you
Yes.
didn't have to make it.
All I had to do was the dishes.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you eat this week?
Well, we had a little get together with some friends. And we sometimes do this thing called Iron Chef.
Oh, yeah.
I hope Iron Chef doesn't sue us or anything like that. But Iron Chef, we just basically choose an ingredient, and everybody brings something that has that secret ingredient in it.
What was the ingredient this time?
Squashes. So any squash
Ooh.
variety you could have. And so Lee, he made a minestrone, of course, that just easy, fed a lot of people, and it was really quite delicious. It's probably the best minestrone I've ever had. I think minestrone is kind of boring actually, but it was really,
I kind of do too.
Yeah,
So that's why
right?
I'm like, okay, it was good.
it was really good. He put some Italian sausage in it too. So
Oh, which made it excellent, I'm sure.
I know, it was really good. So that was awesome. But the thing that kind of stood out actually at this little Iron Chef squash edition party was a couple of our friends made squash ice cream.
Oh,
Yes.
how was the squash ice cream?
It was really good.
Really?
The one that I absolutely loved was, I believe it was butternut squash with maple and candied walnuts or something like that.
Oh,
It was
yum.
really good. And I don't think I would have guessed that there was squash in there.
Huh.
Yeah. Pretty interesting, huh?
I missed out.
You kind of did.
I was fishing
Well, that's good too. So
and that was super fun, but it sounds like I missed out.
you missed out on squash ice cream.
Dang it.
That's a bummer.
Maple and candied walnuts.
And squash.
Yeah. Butternut squash is kind of sweet.
Yeah,
So I could see that might be okay.
It was lovely. It was lovely. Good job. I'm going to name him the Kung Fu Panda.
Yes, Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda has brought a few different interesting flavors of ice cream.
Crazy things. So,
And they've all been good.
Yeah.
So, all right.
and his awesome wife and their child. So they are adventurous and we appreciate that.
Yay.
And now for the main course.
Okay, well, let's get down to our topic at hand.
Caramelization?
Caramelization?
Caramelization. What is it, Sharon? I need help.
Well,
I've heard it so many different ways.
let me tell you.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Caramel is a flavoring or coloring for food or drink made from browned sugar. Caramel may also refer to a piece of chewy candy made from browned sugar, butter, and milk. The word caramel debuts around 1725, coming from the French word caramel, meaning burnt sugar.
Oh,
The verb form of caramel is caramelize, appearing around 1837.
oh.
Related words are caramelizes, caramelized, and caramelizing, used chiefly in North American. The corresponding British verbs are those same ones, just with an S instead of a Z.
So Are you just telling
And
me
the
that
word Carmel is a place name, a proper noun, like Carmel, California, Carmel, Maine, Mount Carmel in Israel. And it comes from the Greek and Hebrew. Both words are Karmel, and it means garden or fertile field.
Oh, wait, is that Carmel or is it Carmel? Do you know?
It's probably Carmel, but, you know, we're casual and we say Carmel.
Carmel. So what you're saying to me is that it can be either
But it's probably Carmel.
Carmel. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but in regards to our topic at hand, is it
Caramelization.
caramelization? Okay. Emphasis on the first syllable.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's science.
Oh, yeah. Well, and a little bit of,
No,
English.
not really.
If anybody knows, I'm
No.
actually curious to see if other people, how people say it in different parts of the country or the world for that matter.
Yeah.
How do people say it? Let's hear it.
I usually say, as an adult, I've said caramel. When I was a kid, I used to always call everything caramel.
Caramel. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
But I grew up in California, so I know that place name is Carmel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the other ones, though.
The one
Whenever
like
I
in
say
Maine.
like Mount Carmel,
That
Mount Carmel,
it,
I say Mount Carmel because I look at it and I just say Carmel.
you want to see a mountain of caramel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm thinking right now.
A mountain
think
of
that would be
oozy goodness, buttery, sugary goodness.
Yeah. I'm going to say Mount Carmel too. Sorry, people that are all about the Mount Carmel.
Which is probably the proper way.
Yes,
to
we're
say
sorry,
it.
but can you imagine this Mount of Carmel?
Mm.
Yeah. Right.
Yum.
Did you take a second to think about it? It was awesome. That's awesome.
So caramelization, there's lots of things that you can caramelize.
Okay.
Caramelizing things is basically just cooking it down, making the sugars break down that's in the food. In a vegetable, it would be like the starches, and roasting it or sauteing it almost to the point of burnt, but it gets really sweet and gooey.
Yes. So it's the sugars that are naturally found in those vegetables, for example.
Yeah. So for instance, like root vegetables are super easy, like potatoes, carrots, onions.
I think
Things like
sugar,
that.
carrots have kind of the highest sugar content, one of the most high sugar contents. And so I think that's why you can get a nice good caramelization happening
Oh yeah, you
on
can.
carrots.
So growing up, I never really liked cooked carrots. And I saw this recipe for a maple glazed
Oh yeah.
cooked carrot,
Mm-hmm.
like whiskey maple glazed or something like that. I made them for Thanksgiving one year and they were delicious, but I never really got around to putting all of the glaze on it that I made because they naturally caramelized.
Yeah.
And I don't know why no one's ever fed me those before. Why I had to make them for the first time to discover that they're absolutely delicious.
But it was a revelation, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, so good. But caramelization is actually a cooking hack that I use quite a bit.
Oh, like in what? Specifically?
Anything. But if I want to up my game of something, I caramelize the vegetables. Onions, when you're making like any kind of savory dish that calls for onions, I will usually try to caramelize them.
Well, that just kind of reminds me of a sweet savory thing. Because if you're, like you said, you're doing something savory, but then you add some sweetness to it, it's just
so good.
a little bit
It
more
adds
complex.
so much more depth. So good. But I've done it with vegetables that I've tried to stuff into enchiladas before, and vegetables like beets, again, the carrots and potatoes and stuff like that. I will try to caramelize them and just roast the heck out of them.
Oh.
And that's kind of what it turns to. The longer that you roast them, the more they break down and They get gooey and yummy.
That sounds lovely.
So I've done it with Brussels sprouts.
Oh yeah, Brussels sprouts are delicious.
Yeah, they're so good. So yeah, it's good. And it's really good if you're wanting to substitute fruit for dessert. Since it's summertime, everybody's got their grill out, so you can grill peaches, figs, bananas, pineapple, all of that
sounds
stuff.
delicious.
So good. And school's starting, and so I have felt kind of bad because my boyfriend and I have not gone camping enough because we like to camp, and
but it's been way too hot.
It's been so hot. We like to go up to the mountains and stuff.
Yeah,
It's not as hot, but we just haven't gotten out, and his kids have missed going camping.
Yeah.
And so I made last night a roasted marshmallow milkshake.
Ooh.
And I made a s'mores milkshake too.
That sounds amazing.
And I was so proud of myself because I did it in my electric oven. You put it on broil and it only takes about a minute and a half.
Nice.
And they are the perfect texture, everything.
Yeah.
But that's caramelization that everybody knows about, is roasting stuff over the campfire.
Yeah.
Your marshmallows.
Your
like Bananas Foster and the banana boats.
Oh yeah. That lovely, beautiful glazed layer of caramel.
Creme brulees.
Oh, creme brulee. Yum. Let's talk about that. Like that's my favorite.
Oh, I love creme brulee, especially like when you get a really good one that's got the vanilla bean pod.
Yes.
The seeds from the vanilla bean.
In the custard.
Oh, yum.
Yes. It's
yeah, I was talking about torches the other day with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the different types of torches that you can use at home to make your creme brulee, like a butane torch or a propane torch. And how...
So are we talking about like the kind that you can buy just at like the Target or the Bed Bath
Yeah,
and Beyond?
For sure. Or the restaurant supply store if you're cheap like me. Yeah.
So I've seen people actually hack that and get something from the Home Depot and make their own. And it's like an industrial one.
So the Home Depot one actually might be a better torch because they're using propane, and propane heats hotter than butane does. And so you only need like 2 passes with your propane torch.
And bam.
Yeah. Whereas like those chef's torches that you get at Target, those are more butane. And so that's going to take like 20 passes to get it the caramelization level that you want.
To get it good. Yeah, we have a butane torch. It's little and it does okay. But yeah, you're right. It totally needs to take, you need
to work with it a few minutes before you get that good caramelization.
Yeah.
Or you could do the free, quote unquote free trick that you can use your broiler again that you already have.
But is that going to be like, is there a chance of melting your custard or making your custard not awesome?
Your custard could get hot, but I kind of like, and I mean, it's on broil. You're not going to want to leave it in there for too long.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of like a warm creme brulee. Versus a cold one.
Oh, really? I kind of like a cold one.
Yeah.
With the sugar maybe a little warm. And then you go crunch.
Yeah, I love that crunch.
And then it's scrumptious.
It is scrumptious.
Because you can't beat it.
So yeah, caramelization. It's good stuff. And it's an ancient flavor, pretty much as old as sugar is.
I know.
People have tried to figure out like what else they can do with sugar. And it's kind of the poor man's flavor. One of the things that caramelized sugar is also known as burnt sugar.
Oh.
So it kind of depends on who you're talking to or how old they are.
Well, I was going to say, when you read off what the French, I think it was the French root of it meant burnt sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my great grandmother was a homesteader.
Oh, really?
Yes. In South Dakota. They bought land there, in 18 something or other, like late 1800s, I think, turn of the century, somewhere in there, for really cheap. And they had a farm, but poor farmers. And so every holiday celebration, like somebody's birthday or whatever, she would make a burnt sugar cake. And for the longest time, my grandmother made it. I never really met my great grandmother. She died when I was really young. But my grandmother would make this burnt sugar cake, and I always thought it was disgusting.
Well,
because I would watch her make it, but I had never tried the finished product until I was a little bit older because I was convinced
it was going to
that it was probably burnt.
Well, when you have a name like burnt sugar cake, what do you expect?
But it's a delightful caramel confection.
Well, and so the thing is like, yeah, because caramel, like when you burn sugar, when it goes too far.
Yeah, when it goes too far, I mean,
it's not good.
Yeah, I was with my friend. We were teaching a cooking class actually through like a continuing learning through Granite School District. And her family, her heritage, they're from Denmark. And we were making this food native to Denmark, and it was a holiday food, and it's basically these caramelized potatoes. Ooh. And they're so yummy. And so my Dane friend is teaching this class, and she's got me at the stove, and I'm, trying to get these potatoes caramelized, and I totally burnt them. And we had to start over. And she's like, don't worry, I mess it up half the time anyway. And I'm like, are you serious? I would never make these things. But they're so tasty.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it, but man, you're teaching a class and you burn.
Yeah.
It was not good. Not good. It's like no fun soggy nuts.
No
fun actual burned sugar.
So when you actually tried this burnt sugar cake,
it was delicious.
When did you actually try it?
I think I waited till I was about like 9 or 10 till I tried it.
Did it look?
Well, yeah, because so she made it in a cast iron pan.
Oh, okay.
And it's, traps the heat, as we've talked about before. Cast iron pans are great, but it actually did take on a really like almost black color. Like she got it just right, but it was this deep, deep, deep dark brown color.
So
that was right before you burn it, but she got it right every time.
Wow.
But I was convinced because I would watch her make it that I was like, no, that's not good.
That is not going to taste good at all.
No.
So wait, is it like a regular cake? Tell me a little bit more about this cake.
So
I'm kind of confused. Is there like a caramel sauce on it?
Yeah. There's a caramel sauce on it, but it's also one of the ingredients.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So it's just this really sweet cake. It's a caramel.
Is it crusty too?
Cake. No, not really.
So soft.
So it's got a tender crumb, but it's a pretty substantial cake because you've got your whites and your yolks have been separated out in this one, and you fold in the whites at the very end. So there's a few steps to it. And when I'm reading the recipe that I have, it's actually from my great grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And back then they didn't dumb down the recipes that we do now.
Yeah.
Like now you go online and there's pictures, which I love because
it's a step by step.
If you're on step 2 and your stuff does not look like that, you can just throw it out and start new. But with these ones, it's like, I'm not sure, because they're also very brief because,
everybody just kind of, there was maybe a general understanding.
Probably a general understanding.
Of how to do certain techniques.
Yeah. Like I collect old cookbooks. And so I've got one here with me tonight. And, there's probably 6 recipes on a page. And the recipes are only a few sentences long. Oh. And so they assume a lot. Like this cookbook was probably, I think the copyright's like 1930 something. And they assume a lot.
Yeah.
They're like, caramelize the sugar. They don't tell you how to caramelize the sugar. They just say caramelize the sugar. And then add ingredients and add your flavorings last. And then you have to kind of pick out like, what your flavorings?
What do I consider my flavorings?
Yeah. So it's a little bit, there's some room for error.
Well, but also I actually probably think it had a bit to do with the fact that a lot more people cooked.
Oh yeah. Tons.
Had skills that were passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And it was the way it was. That's the way you wrote it. And let's be honest, paper was probably dang expensive. So you can't write. I mean, you got to just be concise.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have time for that.
They don't got no time for that.
Yeah.
I got bronchitis.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you finally tasted it.
Yeah, and it's really good. So if you have a recipe for burnt sugar cake, you should make that. I will include my recipe for burnt sugar cake and you can
Excellent.
interpret it as you will in the
Excellent.
show notes.
Wow, I'm excited to see it. Is it going to be like 3 sentences long?
No, it's a few more, but
Okay.
like 6, 8. It's not long.
It won't take up that much space in the show notes, everybody.
Yeah. It's not long.
Now I kind of want to try it. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's what we'll do. You should make me some. Yay.
Or we can try to decipher it together. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. We can try that too. Did your mom or dad ever make it?
No. So this is my dad's side. My dad doesn't really cook.
Okay.
One time when I lived away from home, he felt really bad for me. I can't remember why. I was going through something. And he went to the store and bought a cookie mix.
Yeah.
Where you just
one of
like
the, yeah.
add water.
Right.
So it wasn't like the refrigerated dough. It was like a cake mix, but it was cookies.
Yeah.
And you just add like 2 things to it. So he made them and he mailed them to me. And I opened the box and it was literally all crumbs.
Oh.
With some chocolate chips thrown in there.
Oh.
And he's like, and his note, it was really cute. And like, it was a wrapped up plate full of crumbs.
Oh.
And like his note was like, here, I made you these cookies.
Oh, that's so sweet and funny.
And sad.
And sad. But very, very sweet. It's very
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. So my dad can make toast basically.
And toast is
these
really good.
cookie crumbs.
At least there was an attempt, okay?
Yeah.
It was very sweet.
Yeah. So in other words, no, he's never tried to make that
Okay.
cake.
I just wasn't really sure.
I made it with my grandma when I was a kid.
Okay.
Till I was probably maybe about 15 or so. We would make that cake together, but it's been so long that I might have to try it a couple of times before I get it right.
Well, we'll put it in the show notes and maybe we'll attempt it. And then if you guys attempt it, send us an email with
Send us a picture.
a picture at
Post a picture.
hungrysquared@gmail.com or post it to your Instagram and tag us at hungrysquared. Okay.
Yes.
I'm kind of excited to see this. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the topic that I get to talk about is the science of caramelization. And my mind was blown.
What?
Yeah, seriously. So I have kind of always thought that, so you have your sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just talking basic sugar here. And we can kind of talk about it later in vegetables and other things, but we're just talking basic sugar. So, when something melts, it usually goes from one state to the next, right? So if ice melts, it melts at one temperature and it goes into water.
Right.
Okay. However, sugar is not so simple.
Ooh.
It doesn't necessarily melt. It's kind of this like, and that's kind of the tricky thing is that when they talk about the thermodynamics of the melting is that usually there's a specific temperature at which something melts. So for water,
Right.
it's going to be 0 degrees, not 0 degrees. What am I talking about? There's a specific temperature at which it's going to melt or freeze, right?
Right. Like 33 degrees, it'll start melting.
And so now with sugar, though, it is variable. A professor at the University of Illinois, Professor Dr. Schmidt, wrote a paper and it kind of blew my mind, actually. So they talked about how there's melting probably happening, but before that, there's thermal decomposition. So there's heat being applied to the sugar and changing these molecular bonds that are happening that have been created between these sugar molecules, right?
So it's changing the structure before it melts it.
Yeah. And so, because that's why, like, if I melt sugar, I don't get like a clear.
It's not like an instant liquefaction.
Yeah. It's not a clear liquid, right? Either.
Mm-hmm.
It's brown.
Right.
And melted sugar can taste, it has a simple and sweet flavor. And hypothetically speaking, you would expect it just to have that just sweet. Like if you had sugar in your mouth, it would just have that same texture and flavor.
Right.
But caramel is like it unfortunately, it's way more complex, right? You get a brown color, and you also don't really get something that is clear and white like the sugar is. It's way cooler than that. So in fact, caramel is so different chemically than what sucrose is, right? That in fact they've actually kind of narrowed down to some of these different compounds, and I kind of they have fun names like carmelan and carmelane and carmelen and carmeline. It's just however many carbons and hydrogens are and oxygens are in it. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So this one, so they weren't necessarily, they said, we can't really nail down a melting point for sugar. And so maybe it's because there's more of this thermal decomposition happening. And they concluded, Dr. Schmidt concluded that there would be, they need to further investigate this. But this kind of, I could not believe this little section that whether it melts or decomposes or whatever it happens to do, this caramelization thing doesn't necessarily have to happen at high heats. So
what?
Yeah. So, you stick it on the stove, and
right.
You crank up the heat.
Yeah.
And you expect it to start melting and then starting getting that nice brown color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one writer wrote this article and actually did her own experiments about high heat versus low heat caramelization. So you can actually, if you can do it right, that you can get caramelization throughout the entire heat spectrum. And the end of the spectrum, obviously, is when you get liquid caramel, right? You have that.
And are the tastes different
Yes!
at different heat points?
They
Ooh.
are. So that, if you think about
Let's
it.
talk about that.
Okay, so if you think about that, that is the mind-blowing part. Because, when you talk about burnt sugar cake, I think of that bitter,
Yeah.
kind of like it's pretty. It's like a punch in the mouth where you're like, ugh, it's bleh.
It's gross.
It's gross. So the cool thing is that you could caramelize sugar over kind of at a lower heat and bring out the flavors that you want, the rich, the nutty, those rich flavors, and maybe not get to the point where you would be
Almost in the bitter range.
Yes. Like if you don't want that, then you don't have to have it. Personally, I like some of that those bitter notes in certain things.
Right. I mean, it adds, again, depth. It adds more flavor in your profile.
But you could do something where you can control what flavors you want. So this particular author of this article, and I will link to it, I think it's awesome. So her name is Stella Parks. She is a pastry chef. And she took sugar and she started to do a lower heat caramelization, quote unquote. I'm doing kind of air quotes of sugar in her oven. So she had a pile of sugar at 1 hour. It's slightly toasted looking, not a lot.
Okay.
2 hours later, definitely darker, starting to clump a little because you are driving off water, or a byproduct of caramelization probably is water because you've got a lot of carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens.
Like you're removing it.
Mm-hmm. And so it's starting to clump a little bit. 3 hours, definitely darker. It's starting to kind of almost look like brown sugar that has been like the light brown sugar.
Okay. Yeah.
4 hours, definitely more clumping, definitely darker. And then 5 hours, it's like pretty good clumped and darker in color. And the nice thing is because you are driving that water out, or the water is a byproduct, you do get that clumping. But she says that, you can stick it into a food processor and grind it up so that it's more separated and acts like granulated sugar. But you have
you could cook with caramelized sugar.
Yes. And you can do it in a 1-to-1 fashion, and you have deeper depth of flavor. And
I'm totally doing this with cookies.
I know. Yeah. Right. And so this was like so fun and interesting because if you're like, oh, I totally want to make a caramel cheesecake, for example.
Sure.
If you think about it, you're like, okay, how am I going to get the caramel? Okay. So you think about making a liquid caramel, right? You bring your caramel to
you would get some caramel sauce and put it in there and substitute some liquid for that caramel.
But then you run the risk of having a cheesecake that's too soupy, right? It's not setting up, whatever happens to be. But instead of doing that, you caramelize, quote unquote, your sugar in a lower heat temperature, and you can just do it according to what your flavor profile you want it to be, as well as obviously your time, and then do a 1-to-1 substitution.
So she basically roasted the sugar in the oven.
Yep.
That's how she did it, because on the stovetop, that would kind of, because of the direct heat contact, right? That's going to break down faster
and bring you farther into that the
bitter
kind of
profile
spectrum of things. So she did kind of, she basically roasted her sugar to bring out those lovely caramel notes that you want to get.
Okay.
Without kind of breaching those bitter notes.
That's so cool.
I know. I thought, and so if you think about it, like, you wouldn't really want to you would want something not as heavy in like an angel food cake, for example.
Sure. Like you would just roast and caramelize your sugar for maybe an hour or two.
Yeah. And I
like
have
a really light kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And she talks about how when she did this, she, because as you caramelize the sugars or kind of slow roast these sugars, it kind of takes away some of the sweetness of the sucrose, right? So it's very sweet because it's being decomposed in a sense. And so it even kind of takes away some of that toothache sweetness sometimes of things that you want not necessarily to have that much sweetness. Because there's definitely times when I've made an angel food cake and it's a little too sweet.
Yeah. Because sometimes even if you are making a cake, if you're pairing it with something like a fruit syrup or something like that, you're still going to want it to be less sweet.
Yes.
Just barely this side of sweet kind of a thing.
You want it to be more subtle.
So did she talk about the temperatures that she cooked at in her oven?
So the one that she did it at a gentle heat of 300 degrees Fahrenheit in her oven.
Okay, so fairly low.
And low and slow. That's what she did. And let's be honest, that's probably what's happening when you roast vegetables, right? Same deal, low heat.
Yeah, exactly. Low and slow.
Letting those sugars, and of course there's probably Maillard reactions happening as well, if depending on what other ingredients that you have with it. But that's kind of the same deal, I think. Just slower allows for caramelization to happen. And I'm not saying that like, everybody has the time or luxury to caramelize their sugar or to roast their vegetables, because I think there's a time and a place for getting caramel.
Right, you can't do it all the time.
Yeah.
You can't do it all the time.
But if you need something that has kind of the flavor, those flavors that you want, without sacrificing like structure of a cake or structure or of a cheesecake,
cool. Yeah,
you can use this caramelized sugar straight across. I just think that's so cool. That, I think, like I said, whether it has anything to do with melting or thermal decomposition, like I read some of these articles that were published, and it was pretty funny. There was some back and forths,
some arguments in the scientific community.
Exactly. And I thought it was interesting because that's what is science is forwarded because of arguments and discussion and that type of thing.
Theories and proving and disproving things.
Yeah. So, but it was interesting to see kind of the discussion that everybody had about this particular thing. So I really, really enjoyed talking about that. And then the other very famous food scientist, Harold McGee, he also talked about, he actually did his own experiments, and he got larger crystals of sugar that you can find at like, a Chinese store or something, an Oriental market of some sort. And he did the exact same thing. He started low. He was, I think, around 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. And you can see, one thing that I saw was that you can see the impurities start to caramelize a little bit faster. And they were usually in the middle of the sugar. So obviously these sugars are not pure because they're just, so I'm not exactly sure what Dr. Schmidt used in their experiments, if it was a pure or a pure sugar or not. But for us home cooks, I think this is kind of a fun, very exciting development.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a fun experiment for sure.
Yes. It's like, It's so fun. One last thing I want to close up with actually is something that Harold McGee, well, actually he quotes Dr. Schmidt, and she says, from a practical point of view, caramelization can be thought of as a browning of sucrose by applying heat for a length of time. Thus, it may be possible to better control the caramelization reaction by identifying the time temperature conditions that optimize the production of desirable caramel flavors compounds while minimizing undesirable ones, like the burnt ones, like we were talking about.
Right.
Confectionery manufacturers and sugar artisans, armed with this new scientific knowledge, may be able to push their craft in unforeseeable directions.
Heck yeah.
I know, isn't that so cool? I just think that is
I can't wait to try that.
It's so exciting. So we'll put a link to a couple of these articles so you guys can read them, because I think they're fascinating. And so once again, there was some argument about some vocabulary and terms that they had in these papers, these scientific papers. But I think the general idea is, you can actually control your caramelization a little bit more if you maybe back off on the heat a little.
That's so awesome.
I know, isn't that so cool?
I'm excited. Yeah.
I kind of want to try the angel food cake with some caramelized sugar.
Oh yeah.
Instead of just white sugar.
Mm.
I'm so
Okay,
excited.
let me know how it goes.
Okay, I will. Our podcast is brought to you by our awesome and food-loving sponsors. You guys, you've heard, right? We're having a swag bag giveaway.
Swag box.
Sorry. Swag box giveaway. If you leave us an iTunes rating and review, you'll be entered to win one of our 10 swag bags full of some awesome goodies we're about to talk about. And you know what? Our first sponsor today is BlendTech Blenders.
Ooh, BlendTech.
Sharon, what have you made with your BlendTech lately?
My Designer 725 is a BlendTech after my own heart. It's awesome. I have been making green smoothies lately.
Ooh.
They're really good for in the morning, especially when you don't have a lot of time. I make a green smoothie and then I don't even wash it, really. I just kind of fill it up with water in the sink and then I go.
I was about to say, you can even put it back on and put a little soap in there, right?
Yep. I just do the little, so there is a clean cycle.
Nice.
I empty my smoothie and then I put a drop into my, container, into my to-go cup that I have. And then I put a drop of soap in there and a little bit of water. And then I put it back on the machine in the clean cycle, which is only I think it's less than 30 seconds. And then I just I take it off and then just leave it in the sink.
And bam, you're done.
When I come home from work, it's an easy cleanup.
Sweet. That is awesome. Green smoothies, anything else? Delicious.
Nut butter.
What?
Yes. It elevates your PB&J to a whole new level. Or the apples in nut butter that you eat.
So the cool thing about this new little
twister jar
that they have is that you can make nut butter that doesn't have all of that other random stuff in it. Hydrogenated oils and
any kind of oil. All I do is put in raw nuts.
There you go.
And it creates a nut butter in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. It's delicious.
I love it.
Yes, we did a Facebook Live post on that, and that was really fun.
Yeah, so if you want to watch how we make nut butter easy, quick, fast, check out our Facebook Live.
And super healthy, you guys.
Yeah, so everybody is getting a discount with BlendTech. If you go to blendtech.com, you enter the discount code HUNGRY10. That's HUNGRY10, all in uppercase, and you can get 10% off any blender, and that expires August 31st. But in our swag boxes, BlendTech is donating a spectacular spatula, measuring cups, and a mobile power bank.
Yeah, it's really awesome. They've been super generous, and we're so excited for all of our audience members to get 10% off any blender. You guys, that's amazing.
It's a great deal.
It is. So
check it out.
Thanks so much, BlendTech. And our second sponsor today is Nordic Wear.
Yay, Nordic Wear.
We love Nordic Wear in our household. You guys, I just want to say that, have you ever had egg waffles made with their eggette pans?
I've been to the Bee's Knees Waffles and have had a waffle using their eggette pan.
I know, they're so awesome. So Lee has My husband has started a little business using these awesome eggette pans, and we love them. And they just make the most delicious little egg waffles, and they're super fun and they're delicious. So
They're fun and easy to use. Check them out at nordicware.com.
yeah, but they have a ton of other really fun cookware there and bakeware. So if you are into any of that, you guys, they are giving us any and all of our audience members a killer deal. Like, it's amazing. Like, this is so awesome. So all of our audience members, if you go to nordicware.com and you enter the code NordicWare30, and that's all uppercase, NordicWare30, you're going to receive 30% off of when you spend $50. Anything, yeah, 30%
Holy
off.
smokes, that's a good deal.
I know that is. And I've been eyeing this brownie pan that basically are brownie bites. So I am the type of person that loves me a brownie corner.
Oh, yeah.
Or a brownie edge.
Crunchy edges.
Yep. And that's basically an entire brownie edge all around.
A whole pan of brownie edges.
Oh, yes. It's so delicious. We're just excited to partner with Nordicware because they are this family-owned company. They've been around since 1946, and they're celebrating their 70th anniversary this year.
Happy birthday, Nordicware.
Yeah, awesome. We're so proud that you make good majority of your stuff in the United States. It's pretty awesome.
And we are proud to sponsor with them. So go to nordicware.com and enter the discount code NordicWare30 at checkout.
And all of our swag box winners will have a cookie press in their swag box, and they're so pretty.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, it's going to be so fun. So looking forward to drawing those winners at some point in time.
Woo-hoo.
But you can still be a winner and get 30% off with that code. So thanks again, Nordicware, for everything. And we hope you guys enjoy what they have offered us as well. So thanks.
Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's when
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
food fight, the food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
So, Sharon, this week's question, I think, is a pretty dang good one.
Oh, who's it from?
So, well, let me read the question, and then he actually created a sign off, and I think it's a he because of his email. So, it says, "Hello, H2 ladies." Hey, we're the H2 ladies.
All right.
So here is my food fight question. When you or your significant other makes a fantastic meal and there's only enough leftovers for one person, who gets the leftovers? The one who made it or the one who it was made for? Thanks. Rich in love, poor at lunch. That's how we signed off.
Winter. We have our first hate mail.
What?
I happen to know who this question is from.
Oh, really?
And I think it's hate mail.
Hate mail. Okay, well, let's discuss let's come to a conclusion about if it's what the nature of this letter is.
I'll tell you the nature of this letter.
We're getting personal.
It's personal. That's why I think it's hate mail.
Okay, let's hear it. What happened?
I happened to make a curry last week.
Oh, love me some curry.
It was delicious.
You made it.
I personally made a delicious curry.
Okay, good work.
It was scrumptious. That's for my coworker who gives me a hard time by saying that everything's lovely. But I think that everything is lovely.
Yes.
So,
you're going for scrumptious now.
Scrumptious.
Okay.
So it was really tasty, but my spice ratio, I will say, was a little bit off.
Okay.
And this happens when you make like Indian food and stuff like that. Like sometimes you get into grinding your own spices, or you're just trying to get the right mixture because maybe the recipe isn't right. Like, it's a good recipe, but it's only a good recipe. It's not a great recipe.
Well, and also some of your spices can lose some potency.
Sure, over
Right?
time and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then, like,
It's
if you're
legit.
using some spice blends, like garam masala, chili powder,
They totally have different
curry powder,
different
you've got different
ratios.
ratios in there too. because it's a combination of a lot of different spices.
Right.
So some of them are too cinnamony. Some of them have too much cayenne. Like, you know, it just kind of depends. So anyway, I was just going for a quick meal and I made this curry and it's good. It was really good, but it wasn't great.
Okay.
Because I just want to get the spice ratio right. But we had some leftovers. And so...
How many left? Let's talk about the amount of leftovers you had.
So my beloved looked at me and said, it looks like there's only room for one person to have leftovers here. And I was like, oh no, there's room. There's plenty for both of us. And he's like, no, you should take these leftovers. And I said, no, it's okay. You can have them. You can take them tomorrow for lunch. And he said, no, you should have them. I insist. And I said, okay. So I took him for lunch.
Was he mad? Is this why he's writing this?
He wrote this letter, so apparently he is.
Hate mail. I don't know, because I think that's a fair question.
It is a fair question.
Because Lee oftentimes makes us a lovely meal. Like
yeah.
cooks a majority of the time because he's a trained chef and he makes lovely food. I mean, and he likes to experiment and that type of thing. But generally, like we have good appetites. We eat our food and it's like really there is only enough for one.
Yeah.
So who gets it?
So I think there's a couple of options here.
Okay.
I have said before on a previous episode that if you take me to dinner, I will eat your food. If you insist that I take your leftovers, I will take your leftovers. That's what happens.
He was being gentlemanly.
Yes, but he shouldn't be mad that he was gentlemanly then. So, but I love him dearly. So I will say that we can take turns with our leftovers.
Oh, okay.
So if there's only leftovers for one person, then you have like a little leftover wheel, if you will. Like I get them this time, you get them next time.
Gotcha.
Or you could have a leftover night. So if there's only leftovers for one person and then maybe you've got a couple of meals that week that there's only leftovers for one person, that's probably beneficial by the time Friday or Saturday rolls around and you don't want to cook.
That's a good idea, actually. I like the leftover night idea because we usually do that. Like Friday night is if we haven't gone out, we have okay, what's in the fridge?
Well, and you need to clean out your fridge anyway because gross. Don't let your food sit in your fridge and don't waste your food.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's very good that he wants to eat leftovers. I appreciate that because I hate throwing away food.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah.
So in my household, Lee is terrible at eating leftovers. So I generally don't have this problem. Except for when he makes something that he really, really likes. Like he just barely made some chili verde.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I'm pretty sure I'm not going to eat that much of it. Because Lee is probably going to eat all of it.
Oh, it is so good though.
He'll give me some of it. But the other thing that another way to solve the problem is just to make a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and so what happened with these leftovers in particular was that they did stretch for 2 meals.
Oh, did they?
And so I ate them for lunch and then I brought them home so he could have them for lunch the next day.
So everybody got some.
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes with growing children, it's hard to plan because
you don't know
people are going through growth spurts. Like my best friend, she's a mom of 4. And for the last decade, she's had at least one of her kids in a growth spurt. And so she'll try to double her recipes. And she usually cooks for, a good 8 people. She's got 4 kids. And so she just makes extra. And so people can have that for lunch or, there'll just be extra servings. But anymore, it's like...
It's not covering it.
She's got growing boys, man.
Well...
And yeah... Like she can double the recipes, but sometimes there really isn't leftovers when you double.
Oh man. Well, I would just say that was very gentlemanly.
Yes, thank you. Pour at lunch. I appreciate your sacrifices that you make for me.
But I think also just just switching off and on, or maybe making a little bit more. I think that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
No bigs. How are you feeling about that, Sharon?
Well, I hope it works out.
Do you feel like it's hate mail anymore?
Well, no.
Maybe he just needed to get it off his chest that he really liked your curry.
Okay. It wasn't great curry though. I need to get that spice ratio right.
Okay.
But I appreciate that you eat my food.
Yeah. And he was kind of bummed that you took it.
Yeah, I brought it back. It's fine.
It worked out.
Thank you for joining us today on our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on iTunes and on Stitcher, and Google Play.
Yay.
Leave us a rating in iTunes because that'll help people discover our podcast. And if you leave us a review, you will be entered to win one of our swag boxes.
Woot, woot. We are so excited, you guys. Yeah. So we will join us for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry squared.